Good afternoon, good evening, Africa. Uh, this is yet another session of the Wikindaba. And today, in this session, the topic we are going to discuss is African Wikimedia Projects Tracker, refreshing how we see African language projects by Dumisani, Dubane, Derek Alangi. And this session is going to be hosted by me, Drake Tamale from the Wikimedia user group, Uganda. And trust and safety will be hosted by Geoffrey Katerega from still the Uganda Wikimedia user group. Let me briefly introduce Dumisani Ndubane, who is a long-time volunteer who started editing Wikipedia in 2008. He's the former president of Wikimedia South African chapter and the convener of the first Wiki Indaba. Congratulations on that, Dumisani. Dumisani currently works for Wikimedia Foundation as a community governance strategist. And next is Derek Alangi, who is a seasoned software developer and volunteer who started editing in 2015. He is the co-founder of Wikimedians of Cameroon. He is currently working as a contractor for Wikimedia Foundation. In their talk today, they will discuss current rankings of African language wiki projects, as well as provide an update on plans to create a dashboard for all African language Wikimedia projects. You are most welcome, Dumisani and Derek. Dumisani, let's start with you. Dumisani, you are welcome on stage. Oh, Derek, let's start with you. You are most welcome, Derek Alangi.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Drake. And how are you doing?
I'm fine. How are you, Derek?
I'm cool. You know,
Yes.
Trying to keep up.
Yes, please speak to us.
Yeah, there is this fun project we've been working on for a couple of months now, and we took a step back to reevaluate our African projects. It's very important that we know how the African languages are faring, how the African wikis, what they are doing, what is stopping which wiki from growing and why. Is it that volunteer editors have challenges, and these challenges, if they are coming up, what is the reason? All those things will affect the growth of a particular language wiki here in Africa, and not just in Africa, in other parts of the world, like any wiki at all. So we took a step back to see how we can reevaluate the wikis and how they are doing, and then try to get more insights and then rank them based on different things like page counts, language index, affiliate support, etc. So that's pretty much what we'll be doing, what we'll be talking about today. And it's a very huge project, because at the end of the day, we really just want to have a dashboard, this dashboard that community members can just dive on and then see how African wikis are doing based on different criteria that will basically be filters. So for now, we have developed up to a point where we already can have insights as far as these wikis are concerned. We just want to automate that process now and make it go live. Like, community members can just go and see it. The data set is there, it's been updated regularly, and we just want to serve this to communities so they can use for their research purposes, they can use for their reports, etc. So pretty much that will be it. And of course, Dumisani can speak more about that as well.
Dumisani, it's your time. It's your time now. Kindly speak to us. Dumisani, please. It's your time. I don't know whether he's hearing us, Derek. Derek.
I can hear
Maybe
you.
you
I
can
can hear you.
proceed. I mean, Dumisani, is he hearing us? It doesn't look like he is.
I don't know, but probably he's just trying to set up things, mic checks and all that.
Yeah, I think in the interest of time, if you have more, let's continue sharing. When he's ready, he will come. He'll come on. So please go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Um, the how we want to automate the process of not manually collecting stuff off the African wikis and then putting it into a place where we will have to go through a manual process to actually have these insights. It's an open source project, and by that I basically mean that people can contribute. So if you're in a country that has a language wiki, so that has a Wikipedia or a Wiktionary or a Wiki Voyage or any language Wikimedia project, you can jump on, and there might be features that you want to see on the dashboard. You might want to say, okay, we are covering only Wikipedias and Wiktionaries. What about Wiki News? Maybe there is a wiki source that is hosted by an African language somewhere in the continent. There might be a wiki data instance. Who knows? Like, these things happen. And you want to add those into the dashboard so that it can help visualize, it can help other people within the continent and the world at large understand exactly what is happening language-wise in the movement as far as the African continent is concerned. So the project is open. We started a repository on GitHub, which is where we will do most of the code development. So if anyone is interested, of course, you can get in touch with Dumisani or me. We will just add you on, bootstrap you, bring you into the project, and you can do your contributions that you want to do. And we really need more hands. Like, we need many more hands because African language wikis are growing, and we want to make sure we represent every African language that has an entry, maybe a wiki, a Wiktionary, a Wikipedia, or anything else. And of course, while we try to add more content into the wikis, we can create more if we want. So if there is a language that is spoken in a particular region of Africa and it needs representation, of course, people can jump in and start a wiki. There is a process that you definitely go through. The foundation will have to walk you through, and then goes through incubation, then it gets accepted. Then you have the admins join and people creating content on that wiki. Then we plug that wiki in to the dashboard so we can track progress. We can know, how is this wiki doing? How long did it take for the wiki to take off? How many articles do they have? What is their average number of articles that they create per month or annually? And based on that, we can be able to understand at least, or have a sense of what is happening in that region or what is happening on that wiki. So basically, the whole idea is to monitor growth and understand the state of African wikis in the broader scheme of things, compared to things like the Hebrew Wikipedia, the English Wikipedia, the French Wikipedia. We want to see where we are standing and what we can do to fill the gap, because in as much as we want to contribute to Wikipedia, we also want to, if you look at the vision clearly, part of it is we want to get to everybody, like all languages represented. And the target is actually like the same. So if there are 10 billion articles on English Wikipedia, there should be 10 billion articles on Zulu and even more. And then make sure that each entry on one wiki is available in another, and just like that. Once we hit that target, then we must have reached the entire world and all wikis, all languages. So basically, if we hit that target, for example, in Africa, then we'll have majority of the African languages represented on Wikipedia, meaning that people can read from those languages and understand what is happening. So if there is an entry of Elon Musk in English Wikipedia, then that same entry is in Zulu. So people in the Zulu side should know who Elon Musk is, what he does, and all that. So that's how knowledge keeps getting broader and broader and getting to everybody. So we want to know where we are standing and see how we can improve and see what is affecting what particular sector and see how we can channel some energy in that direction and make sure growth happens. So I don't know if Chief Dumisani is here now.
He's here. He's already here. Um, uh, Parik is asking, how can he join? Please guide him. Parik is asking for guidance on how we can join your project. Could you offer some guidance as the Dumisan comes on?
Okay, it's a question.
Yes, not really a question. It is a comment in the chat. He would like to
Oh,
get guidance from you on how he can join your project.
yeah. So joining is pretty straightforward. There's no formal process. You just get in touch with me or Dumisani, and then we add you on to the spreadsheets that we are collecting all the data. Then we will give you I think the repository on GitHub is actually open. Like it's not a private repo, it's an open repository. We can add you on to that as well. The only thing which we will have to do is just bootstrap you, like bring you up to speed, explain to you what we've been doing so far, like the database design, the ER diagram, the environment that we want to develop these dashboards on, the amount of languages that we have covered so far. Pretty much just explain a few things to you so you get bootstrap and you understand where we are going to. And then progressively, things will just happen. So there is no formal process. It's just about pinging me or Dumisani, and that's it. We just whip you into a call and we just continue the work from there.
Thank you very much. I would like to let Domisani also speak to us. I hope Domisani you are on right now. It's your time. Please speak to us. He may you. It seems you are muted. We can't hear you. Yes, speak now. Please. Oh, you are muted. Unmute.
So I believe this might be a slight issue with access to microphone or something like that, because
Okay.
he is
Do you have the presentation, Derek?
he's not muted, but when he speaks, we are unable to hear.
Anyway, right now he's muted.
Yeah, he's muted now.
So, do you have the presentation? Anything to present so that you could be doing it as he sets himself up? Please go ahead.
Yeah, there is a presentation, and we had structured it in a way that there is a section that Dumisani takes, and there is another section that I take, based on the different areas that we are tackling on the project. So it's going to be quite tricky if we are unable to have it on board. We have the slides. I have the slides right here open, but there are a couple of slides that he needs to take. Then I continue from
I
there
think
right down to
what
the
we
end.
can do, what we can, please upload it, let it be there. Then you can present from it. I think you'll be able to see it.
All right, cool. So I will just go ahead and quickly do that now. Just a moment. Let me do that. Okay, so I think I have that downloaded. So I will just drop it right here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, Chief.
All right. Oh my goodness. Okay. I am glad to finally be with all of you. Let's see if you can see with my video. Yes. A bit dark, but you can see me.
We can. That's
All
right.
right. So who's gonna help us with the slides, because my computer is not cooperating with me today.
Derek is going to upload them
Okay.
briefly, yes. Then once
Okay,
he does
so
that,
just a quick ask: is there a way I can do it on this interface right away?
yes, I think there is a way. Look at the chat, the speaker chat, and take how to do it. Or you can share them, and someone uploads from our end.
Yeah, I'm just checking the interface right now, but I don't. Is it? I think I can present from my end. It's possible. There is a possibility to just do that. Then probably maybe put the slide on commons after the session or something.
I think we can do that.
Yep. So I will quickly present right away. So just please let me know when things are visible over there.
In a second, we can see.
Okay, then I can assist Dumisani. If Dumisani can see my slides, I can help with that.
I think you can proceed if you can see Derek's slides.
I can't see Derek's slides. It looks like he's presenting, but I can't see where he is.
Yes,
So
you will follow him. You will just tell him to go ahead when he will press and you present.
okay, so I think this might be going straight away to the audience and not the people on here.
I can see it. I'm seeing it.
Okay.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness. All right. So Derek, you'll tell me what slide number you're
The,
on.
the introductory one, the
Perfect.
first one.
Perfect. I'll do that, Chief. So I'm on the first slide.
All right. Okay, so welcome to the session. We've lost a few minutes, but I'm hoping we can make it up as we go. So this session, as Derek has already introduced while I was trying to join, is really about the African Wikimedia Projects Tracker, and the theme is to refresh how we see African language projects. So let's go to the next slide, Derek, and start from there. All right, so you're on the next slide, and the slide is why so much interest.
Yep.
All right, so first and perhaps the most urgent of interest is the risk faced by African languages. In one of his op-eds, Victor Oladokun identifies a tech-driven world that is dominated by less than a dozen global languages. In this, consequently, social media, TV and digital programs, children programs, computer games, mobile applications, and news contents do not favor indigenous languages as one of the reasons for contributing to steady decline in African languages. Every African language is a repository of oral history and collective values. Proficiency, therefore, provides speakers with an intuitive sense of who they are, where they have come from, and who they potentially can be. And there are a few things that we have going for us in the region, though. In 2016, The Economist found that while less than half of the population have access to electricity, two-thirds own a mobile phone. In a Pew Research survey of 6 sub-Saharan African countries, a median of 41% used the internet occasionally or had access to an internet-capable smartphone. So that compares to around 89% of Americans. While the internet advancement like 5G are happening in certain regions and showing no signs of slowing down, there's still a long way for us to go before we can reach global connectivity. Africa has seen a significant growth, mainly because of a massive spike of internet users in the Democratic Republic of Congo between 2019 and 2020. The country's number of internet users increased by 9 million. However, even with all these signs, connectivity is improving. We continue to see less than desired growth in African language Wikipedia projects. Wikipedia has received a considerable praise for its multilingual ethos and design. For example, someone described it as an online multilingual's greatest success, and that was Botza in their study in 2012. The encyclopedia is not only meant to be collaborative, free, and comprehensive, but it's also meant to be multilingual. In her essay, Sides of Struggle and Possibility in Cyberspace, Anna Demute commented that the certainty has been changed in terms of access over the years. Many more people speak and speakers of many different languages now have access to the internet. And this has led to the internet becoming a more diverse, more multilingual space. However, diversity still remains skewed, and the African continent, with its over 2,000 languages, remain marginally represented on Wikipedia. The digital space then continues to be a site for struggle. It's a space where existing power struggles, reflected, for example, in unequal access to digital technology, entrenched in imbalances and equities, continue. These imbalances apply to all three measures of the internet diversity, which is user profiles, web presence, and user activity. While Wikipedia is an important example of user-generated multilingual content, it has not done well in terms of African languages. So, set up that basis for interest in the growth of Wikipedia or Wikimedia language projects in the region. Let's start to envision how we see that growth, both as challenges as well as opportunity. And Derek will take us to the next slide, and we will see how that compares. So, first, let's start at the beginning of the trail. There's always been an interest in understanding how African language Wikipedia projects are doing. So the trail starts here with user Greenman, who since 2008 has blogged about the top 10 Wikipedia language projects in Africa. Since then, Wikindaba has provided a very good platform to conduct such overview and to share the rankings with the regional community. And as you can see there, we have since over the years seen different users present about Wikipedia, about the African language statistics for Wikipedia projects. In 2014, user Greenman or Ian presented a talk on African language Wikipedia statistics, and his presentation was shared with user Kipala, who is Ingo, who is joining us actually, to talk about those statistics in 2014. And this was at the first Wikindaba presentation. User Kipala or Ingo came back in 2017 and presented on African language Wikipedias. Following that, in 2019, user Tuvak and user Jamie, or that's Dumisani, and Oh my goodness, I have just blacked out. So I'm going to stick to users.
Samoye.
Someone, yes, presented on the state of African wikis at the fourth Wiki Indaba in 2019. And so that's where the trail is starting and is going. And this is leading us to myself and Derek presenting on statistics for this session of Wiki Indaba. Now let's look at how the rankings look this year. And Derek is going to take us to the next slide. Before we look at those rankings, let's look at the overall picture. At the moment, we are looking at 114 African language projects in the continent. And that breaks down by 55 languages on Wikipedia, African languages on Wikipedia, 37 African languages on Wiktionaries, and 12 African languages on Wikibooks, with 10 languages on Wikisource. Here's a catch though. 43 of those projects are still on incubator. And so getting statistics about, for example, the number of active users and the number of changes that we are seeing there is a little bit trickier than if those projects had their own home URLs. On top of the 114 African language projects, we found that 6,432 active editors work on those language projects. Now, of course, this is not disambiguated by username. So that 6,432 might actually be 3,000 or less if we were to look at unique usernames working there. And so that's how our African language Wikipedias look in terms of major numbers. Now let's go ahead to the next slide and see what the actual rankings are for the top Wikipedias and Wiktionaries as we speak today. Are we on the next slide? Thanks, Derek. Yes. So top 10 Wikipedias. If you look at only the page count, we've got the Egyptian Arabic Wikipedia right at the top, followed closely by the Standard Arabic Wikipedia. Then we have Afrikaans, Malagasy, Swahili, Yoruba, Amharic, Hausa, Zulu, and Northern Sotho or Sepedi. And those are your top 10 Wikipedias by page counts. In terms of Wiktionaries, we've got the top 10 Wiktionaries as well. And you will see that the rankings don't fit what we're seeing on Wikipedias. So while Malagasy, for example, is way ahead of the rest of the Wiktionaries when we compare them. And on number 2, we get Standard Arabic, we get Afrikaans, and suddenly we have other languages we didn't have on the top 10. We have Oromo, we have Wolof, we have Somaliga, and we have Bambara, making it into the top 10 of Wiktionaries. So that's an interesting diversity that we see. Let's go to the next slide. Is that enough, though? Is that enough for us to truly understand the landscape of the Wikimedia projects in our region? I think no, this is not enough. And here's the reason why. Let's go to the next slide. There are other factors that could really be useful for us to understand how these languages stack up against each other. And in this case, we would like to propose having some form of a language index that will allow us to understand that ranking that we just saw, those top 10 rankings, all the way up to the 54 languages if we're looking at only at Wikipedia. And these are the factors we would like to propose for looking at this. We would like to try and build a language index using page count, which we already saw, which is the most used and cited category when looking at ranking these language Wikipedias. But we also would like to look at word count, because when you look at page count and word count, then suddenly you understand what the context what the content in that wiki project is. And then outside of that, we then want to also look at what's the community surrounding this wiki project. And here we suggest looking at the number of active editors, and we also suggest looking at the level of language localization. And that will tell you the community that's supporting this language. And then further outside then of the factors that the community can control, we can then suggest looking at the size of first language and second language speaker population. We suggest looking at the language reach of those of the languages by looking at, just a second. Apologies, I seem to have lost my slide. Okay.
We are on the slide with other factors that would be useful.
Yes. There we go. They have got it back. So outside of factors that community can control, we propose looking at the size of the first and second language speaker population, as well as the language reach. So when we say language reach, we say we are looking at how many countries speak this language. That will tell you, the available market that the language has for us to invest in this language as a community in the Wiki project. And then on top of that, we then suggest looking at the affiliate support. So how many affiliates actually support this language? And so looking at those and then weighing them by the percentages that we suggest here, of course, language content taking the full share of 50% of the weight, and then your community aspect or taking the other 20%, and the language reach or the reach of the language and the speaker population, those being factored at the rest of the 20%, you then arrive at a different way of looking at these languages. So how do we get there? And how would this look like? Yeah, let's go to the next slide. And Derek will tell us what we have tried so far.
All right. So what are we building towards? What is this dashboard going to look like in terms of the different data sets that Dumisani has categorized in the previous slides, and how we would actually build and make this automated dashboard come to life with the data set that we collect from all the language wikis. So first, we definitely need reliable data. Like we shouldn't be making assumptions here. Of course, there are African language Wikipedias that do exist, and if you go there, you can get on the statistics page, on this special page called statistics, you can get the word count, you can get the page count, you can get the number of editors on that wiki, etc. So we definitely need to have a place where we can get reliable data to apply our assertion, to apply the way we are looking at the language projects. So we go to all the different language projects, we get all this data from we harvest that, then we put into a spreadsheet, for example, and then perform computations on that. Then once we do that, we apply all the different percentages of the heuristic, so to speak, word counts, page count, and the community aspect. We apply it on the language wiki. We can then begin to perceive and see that, all right, this is behaving like this because of XYZ. This is behaving like this because probably it has more editors. So, for example, Arabic Wikipedia could have the highest number of articles, for example, because it has more editors writing to that wiki. Or maybe the country has a majority of the population speaking that language, or that are able to write the language, which will of course affect the editing rate, etc. And things like that. Then of course we need to check out the census, which is in line with what I just talked about, like the speaker populations. Who are those actually speaking the language? What percentage of those people are editing on Wikipedia and things like that. Of course, we can see that there is historical data from user Greenman that gives us research findings from his end in terms of blog articles, where he writes about the top 10 language wikis by page count. And as you saw from the beginning of the slide, where Dumisani also introduced other African Wikipedias that have attempted to dive into this topic and actually do some findings and provide data where we can also look at and build on top of that, so that of course we don't do redundant work, we don't put our efforts doing the same thing. So we keep doing that to a point where we know that, all right, we've arrived at this point, we now understand what is happening with the language wikis and why they are behaving the way they are behaving. So we need a language source, we need a reliable source of data. And what do we do with that data? Of course, we need to crunch it, mine it, make decisions, then display results. And that is where the dashboard that we are working on will provide at the end of the day. So the next slide, we will talk about when we have this data, what do we do with it really? Yes, the data is there. We know that this wiki has this number of editors, this number of page count, word count, etc. We need to structure it in a way that we can process, we can run queries against it and make certain decisions to understand what is happening. And then we can better understand where we are in the grand scheme of things. So we went for a design that looks like this, where we represent that data in the form of this kind of schema. We have wikis. So this is an ER diagram that tries to represent the data that we have at hand to build on. So this is just an entity relationship diagram that shows us all the different wiki tables or entities and how they relate with one another for us to solve this problem. So we have three model tables that we'll talk about. We have the wikis table, which of course keeps track of the wikis, things like the wiki's name, the word count, page count, active editors, localization level, etc. We have languages, which is of course a very important key ingredient in this problem that we want to understand. The languages, how do they affect what is going on? How can they impact the way we see things as far as the projects are concerned? So we have language code, language name, first language speaker, etc. Then we have one of very important table here, the countries table, which tells us, okay, this is a wiki. This is a wiki. How does this wiki relate to a specific country? For example, this wiki is in this language, and this language is spoken by this set of countries. So that is the relation. So there is a wiki that is in a particular language, and then that language is spoken by a group of countries in the African continent, and we need to keep track of those countries. Then we go further to also relate other things like how do we model a specific country to a particular economic zone? So we don't always stick with the wikis language countries entities. We go further by including the economic zones. Like, okay, there is the ECOWAS, for example, and there are other economic zones that we can group countries based on. Then there is this beautiful relationship that is created between all the different tables, and then we can use that to make decisions on. Not to forget, one of the categories that Dumisani talked about is the regional affiliates, like the affiliate support. There is a specific wiki, for example, and it's in a particular language, and that language is spoken by a certain group of countries. Those countries have affiliates, so user groups, chapters, etc. What support does the affiliate offer that's in the context of the country to that wiki or to that language project? So not all editors are affiliate members or belong to a particular affiliate. And of course, we already know that there are some countries, for example, that don't have affiliates, but they do have language projects and they do have editors. So if we want to focus only on the editors and not also look at what the affiliate support looks like, so what support does a particular affiliate in a country offer to push the agenda of that wiki, to push the agenda of that language and make sure that wiki grows. So that is also a good way to monitor how affiliates are working in a particular country or in a particular context in the African continent. So we put this down in an entity relationship diagram like this, which can then be forward engineered directly to a MySQL database. Then we populate that with the data set that we have gathered. We populate the database with the data set, and then we build our application based on that. And I would also like to add that it is not static data. This data keeps it keeps updating with time. So it's not something where we just do today and then the dashboard is static, everything just stays like that. No. So we have every single day or every single week, things get updated, based on the updates that are happening in the backend. We do have the changes that you can see directly on the dashboard. So you can go to something like 2019, you see what is happening. 2020, you see what is happening, and progressively like that as the years go by. What do we want to use to build our application? So the application is, of course, a software, a piece of app that will run somewhere that people can access from any part of the world. We sat down and looked at different options, and in the context of Wikimedia offers infrastructures where people can build apps and deploy. So the environment we'll be using, of course, for our deployment, thanks to Wikimedia Toolforge, we already have things set up there. We just need to build the app and then ship it. So we have resources from that end to build the application and then deploy on Toolforge. The technology stack that we'll be using is Python and Flask. So in this case, Flask is just a tiny little bit of Python framework, a small micro Python framework that you use to build web applications. Then, of course, we use the triplets, which is HTML, JavaScript, and CSS to present things to people, like the charts, for example, and the different pages that we want to display. The charting system that we will use to actually demonstrate the dashboard is a JavaScript library called chart.js. That is what we will use for displaying the different charts. Then MySQL here is the database environment that all the data set will live in, and then we can run queries against that. Then we will be using Git and GitHub for our development, and it's an open source project. So feel free to join in and contribute features, ideas, and many more. So the plan is pretty straightforward. So we have an ER diagram, which has been carefully designed to depict all the aspects that Dumisani shared in the previous slides. We have a database implementation in MySQL with a data set that anyone can import directly to their database instance and then build on top of that. We have SQL queries that we have developed specifically to solve this kind of problem that we will apply on the dashboard filters themselves. Because let's say there is a dashboard with a chart for page counts and you want to see for word count, you just need to change a particular filter and then that happens. Then you want to see for language index, you change a particular filter and then something happens. So those changes, those filters are actually SQL queries that run against the database and then produce results. So these queries have been developed already, and they are just we just need to plug them in to the UI and then tie them to the back end, and that works like magic. Then we have also succeeded in setting up the environment, so where we would actually deploy the application, both locally and on ToolForge, to be identical, where when time comes, we just push everything and then we are fine. So at this point, the work in progress is to build and release an MVP, a tiny little version 1, where we can begin to iterate on that and add more features. Then after we add all the features that we know that, okay, we're in our list, then we will release a stable version and probably send an email out notifying people that, hey, there is some cool stuff going on here. You can check it out. You can give your feedback, suggestions, requests for improvements, etc. When we collect that feedback, then we plug it back into the system and then we keep improving up to a point where when someone looks at the dashboard, they can begin to see what is going on, and from there write reports, come up with other strategies to improve on the system, and explain why language projects are faring the way they are faring. So at this point, I will, before I transfer back to Dumisani, I already talked a lot about this. So it's an open source project, which means you can add code to it, you can request features, you can contribute to a particular wiki, because at the end of the day, when we see how wikis are faring, we know where to channel our energy to promote the growth of a specific wiki that we want, based on whatever reasons. So this project will also enable us to see where to channel our energy. What project is lacking? Why is it lacking that way? Is it that there are editors, but there is no support? What exactly is going on? Then we can redirect our energy and see that language wiki grow, and then be able to see that growth reflect directly on the dashboard, and then understand that, aha, this happened the way it happened because this set of activities were made possible, and then it affected this wiki like this, and that is why the chart bumped up. So I'll transfer it back to Dumisani, that will talk about the mock-up, what we want to see, and then we'll move on from there. So over to Dumisani.
Thanks, Derek. So what mock-up have we done already? We are trying a few things. We haven't completely settled, for example, on the weights that we have proposed. There is still room for us to change the weights. Ingo and Anas made a good point that there's a lot of bot edits that we see in these languages, and perhaps we want to revisit the weight that we give to page counts or to the word count, so that it makes a bit sense. But anyway, what we believe is that we've got a good place to start from in proposing this index. And let's look at what it means when we apply this index as it currently is with the weights now. Derek, can you go to the next slide? All right, so when you look at this page, this is how the rankings would look like when we applied the weights we proposed onto these language wikis. We see a slight reversal between Egyptian wiki and Arabic wiki, but in fact, it now presents you with a better understanding that although Egyptian Arabic has got more page count compared to the standard Arabic, in fact, the standard Arabic has got a higher community support, and so it scores much higher than the Egyptian Arabic in this ranking. We see other things as well. We see how Hausa and Fulani would score higher than Swahili, for example, because of a better or higher speaker population and better community support. But we also see how Swahili scores better than Afrikaans and Malagasy when we apply the indexes, because Swahili has got a better speaker population than both Malagasy and Afrikaans. And of course, I think Anas would be happy to see that Moroccan Arabic actually makes it into this into the top 10 when we apply the index. So it's not perfect. It's not a perfect index, but it's a very good place for us to start in terms of interrogating how actually these language wikis stack up against each other. And so, please, next slide, please. We have a long, long way to go. This is by no means the be all and end it all in terms of understanding the regional language wikis that we have in Africa. But this is a good place to start at. Now that we have this proposal, our invitation to you is to join the project, as well as reach out to us and talk to us. If that 10% really doesn't make sense for affiliates support, propose a percentage, and we will be happy to experiment with it and see how that changes and stacks the languages on Wiki. And if you're a developer and you are affair with some of the languages that we are using that Derek has alluded to, we would really love to have you in the project, supporting and helping us to getting this dashboard into a dashboard that we can now share with the community and use it to understand the effort that we put as volunteers to editing these wiki projects, and see that it actually is recognized and the community can understand this project is doing very well. We need to continue. And this project has got a lot of potential. It's got the speakers, it's got the community, but the wiki is not working. Let's start channeling some of the efforts towards that project. And this is basically what we are trying to do with this project. So hit us up on email, and let us know you're interested, and we will reach back to you and give you more channels on how to interact with us, but also how to join the project and to contribute. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully this was useful for you.
Thank you very much, Dumisani. Thank you, Derek. We still have 1 minute left. If you could just give us some concluding remarks, and then we are go. Derek, or Dumisani?
I'm putting our email addresses on the chat. Hopefully we're not exposing ourselves to weird things, but yeah, I'm putting our contact details here on the chat. Please reach out to us and talk to us.
And I think that marks the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Derek, please check that email address if I typed it correctly.